Awakening Spirituality. It's a safe, supportive space to deepen our connection to Source, ourselves, and to others, and to grow in wisdom and understanding. It's a place to celebrate, question, and grow. Hi, my name is Heather Murray, and welcome to Awakening Spirituality. Today on our show, I'm joined by Tina Heathers, who will be a part of our first conversation today as we talk about spirituality and how we became an online community. And later on, we have a special guest, not to give it away, but she's a writer who wants to change the conversation on spirituality. So stick around. Tina Heathers has an MBA with several years' experience in business management and corporate training. But her passion lies in the study of human potential and the innate ability we all have to rise above the mundane and live exceptional lives. Along with her business career, she's been working in the field of spiritual healing and mental, emotional well-being for many years. She assists people along the path to self-discovery and success by helping them access their own inner power center, discovered through the silence of their own being. Tina Heathers offers training programs and private coaching to help individuals master their mind and emotions. Immense joy lives inside each of us. We just need to know how to find it. She's a certified meditation instructor, mindfulness meditation based, certified life coach, and a certified executive coach. So, Tina, thanks for joining us today to talk about the Awakening Spirituality community. But before you share your thoughts with us, tell us what your inspiration was to create this group.
Thanks, Heather. So happy to be here. So, I wanted a place where people could openly discuss all things spiritual without apologizing for their beliefs or trying to defend them. I've worked with many people over the years in my spiritual healing business and when I was an active minister within the church community. I found that many were afraid to openly speak their thoughts because if their beliefs seemed different in any way, they were made to feel weird or just wrong, or perhaps they dared not say anything that would contradict those they viewed as the authorities. So I think there are thousands of people who have had this experience, particularly within traditional religious settings. I'm finding the longing for spirituality more common now than ever before. And I wanted a place where people can share, explore, and freely express their desire to search for and discover the divine and what that means to them personally.
What is spiritual awareness?
Okay, to me, spiritual awareness is the invitation to explore our spirituality, that part of us that exists beyond the physical body, and to discover how we are connected with spirit, source, the divine, God, goddess, whatever name has meaning for you. But that's something greater than us that calls us forward into expansion and enlightened awareness. I think it also has to do with recognizing that that same spirit that lives within me resides within everyone. And as soon as we discover and open to that spirit that resides within us, we will see that same light shining in others. And this is the beginning of real healing and that sense of belonging that deep down I think we all seek. It will awaken a sense of love and compassion, and it has the potential to unite all humanity once we open to it. Now, I may be optimistic, but I feel like once we discover this for ourselves, it could be the end of all prejudice and discrimination because we will finally wake up to the understanding that we are all one, equal in every way.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. That is definitely something I'd like to explore. So tell me, what do your meetings consist of? Like, what do you do?
We're an online gathering place so that we're not limited by geography. So we learn, discuss, explore, practice with like-minded souls. We hope to have gatherings where we can actually meet up in person from time to time. But basically, through chat rooms, webinars, events, and podcasts, we hope to open the discussion and create a community dedicated to creative exploration of spirituality. But we're not afraid to ask some tough questions and to explore our resistance to change. We encourage the deep dive into our hidden bias and conditioned beliefs, and to examine the walls we create that block us from developing peaceful and loving relationships. One of our main values is non-judgment and respect for the unique and diverse experiences along the spiritual path. We must each find our own way back to source. There are many helpful books and systems, but we believe it is important that each soul is free to find their own creative expression as they seek to discover the truth within themselves.
Okay, that's especially important in the current world to be able to connect with like-minded people. I love this concept. So if I was curious about spirituality but not entirely sure about it, what do I need to know? What can I do?
Everyone is welcome to come explore with us. Listen into our podcasts, join a webinar, listen to others sharing their stories about their own spiritual journeys, and see if that resonates with you. Spirituality can be anything that makes you aware of that sense that there is more to you than just a biological, physical being. It is also the awareness that there is something greater brewing within you. Spirituality is often discovered when your mind can sense information and experiences with no logical explanation. So there are many amazing spiritual books, audio courses, videos, workshops, discussion groups, all kinds of things to choose from. The opportunities are endless. But we must never forget the power of personal experience. I have found meditation to be the most fulfilling and enlightening method to discover my own spiritual nature. It is amazing how something within us just wakes up when the conscious mind is quiet. When you still your thoughts, you make room for some deeper truth to emerge. It is transformational. Books and workshops can only get you so far. The real magic happens when you open the doors of your soul and begin a spiritual relationship with yourself and discover who you really are.
I love that you mentioned meditation, and I completely agree. It was you actually many years ago that started me on that path. My daily meditation was so incredibly transformational in my life. So you've mentioned all the different ways that awakening spirituality offers to connect and learn. It sounds very accessible. It feels like it's a safe place to discover what fills my soul with like-minded people, with no apologies, just being myself. Would that be accurate?
Oh yeah, Heather, that was awesome. That was a great description. So because our goal is freedom of expression, working through your thoughts and beliefs to find a safe haven of peace and comfort within yourself that enriches your life and helps you to feel whole. But something that works for you intimately, not just learned theology or conditioned family beliefs. We want it to be really valuable to each individual that's looking. I suspect we must each eventually walk through the valley of our own beliefs and training and have an honest discussion with ourselves about what we believe and what we feel deep in our bones. We must at some point leave the foundational beliefs of our upbringing and grow into spiritual adults that seek our own relationship with the divine so that we may speak from personal experience rather than historical books and traditional handed down beliefs. We need to make it real for us.
Wow, that's really powerful. That can feel like both scary and exciting to people. So I'm grateful there's a group that can kind of help guide people through that. Well, Tina, I'm pretty excited about learning new things. It sounds like Awakening Spirituality has a lot in the works. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this exciting new adventure. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much. No, nothing fascinates me more than the spiritual quest. I just love to talk about it and to experience it.
Awesome. Please remind everyone of the website and how they can contact you.
Okay, so the website is awakeningspirituality.ca. We also have a Facebook page called Awakening Spirituality. The website is still under development, so check back often and see what we've added. Or, you know what, come join us. Help with the development of this movement. Add your own thoughts and your own wisdom. You can also explore my personal website, thesilencewithin.com, to see what I've been up to. And both of those websites have an email where you can contact me.
That's awesome. What would you like to leave people with?
Oh, for sure, the idea that there is way more to discover if you are brave enough to become a spiritual explorer. And if you're ready to question your own traditional beliefs, hidden bias, and conditioning, I have found nothing in life as fulfilling as my deep and meaningful relationship with spirit.
Spoken like a true spiritual explorer. Thank you again, Gina. I hope to have you on again soon to talk about your website and some of the things you offer personally. So inspiring. I'll be checking out all Gina has to offer. In the second half of our episode, we will be speaking with Susan Scott. She's an author and editor and wants to offer support to those who are passionate about spirituality but who lack support to develop their voice or go public with their stories. Susan Scott is an author and educator with a passion for spiritual life stories, written and oral, published and hidden. Susan is taught in communities and classrooms from the Great Lakes to the desert Southwest. In her latest book, Body and Soul, women writers and poets speak out about unorthodox approaches to the sacred. Susan, thank you for offering your expertise and speaking with us today.
Heather, delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I honestly love that you want to help others with documenting their journeys. Tell me, Susan, how did you get started and what was your inspiration?
Well, documenting journeys, I like that you put it that way. That's a great way to frame this kind of work. And this really has been a powerful kind of lifelong passion of mine for transformative stories that inspire healing change. And, the human brain, of course, is wired for storytelling. It's how we process experience. I have a story brain, you have a story brain, and we know this instinctively as kids. I know when I was a kid, I was always drawn to those moments when people would kind of open up and talk about the inner life, meaning their dreams or really remarkable experiences that they'd had. And I have these sort of physical memories of being riveted to these stories and feeling that something in the room was changing when people spoke that way. And so I, made it my business to try to understand why that's the case. And when I began to write and to teach, that was the question I really wanted to pursue: was why do some deeply personal stories have such healing power? So, in some cultures, those are oral stories. They remain oral stories, and they have real power in the community. But when they're written, they become what scholars call life writing. And life writing is really everywhere. It's hiding in plain sight. So when you pick up a biography or an autobiography or memoir, when you give a child her first diary, when you curl up with your journal, if you stand to give a eulogy, if you're blogging, or if you fire off a personal essay to the newspaper, if you sit down to write a letter or even email, you are really adding to this living library of life writing. So I really, the vein of life writing that I'm really the most interested in is spiritual life writing. And that is centuries old. We don't really talk about this or think about it, but it's quite incredible. So the Confessions of Augustine dates to the 4th century. And for hundreds of years, that was the model for how to talk about the spiritual journey. And that book, if you can believe it, is still selling. That book is still in print. It's incredible. But the sobering part is that means that most of what has come down to us in history really are voices like St. Augustine's. So that's voices of the privileged, mostly men with power and influence. And so the other side of that, of course, it means the vast amount of human experience really has been lost to our understanding, because any voices that were not or are not valued are not collected and preserved. And in the case of women especially, we're looking at thousands of years of voices that were actively suppressed. So this is it, Heather. I'm on a mission to make up for lost time. I want to make room for voices that have been lost or that are marginalized. I really want to see everyone step into the circle.
Can you tell me, are there other ways that people can document their own spiritual journeys?
Sure, because yes, I mean, writing is just one way. And as I say, in oral cultures, say in indigenous communities, the practice is really oral storytelling. It's not writing at all. So what's important is memory and learning to hold people's stories as sacred. But let's say what's more common among us is you could sit down tomorrow and start telling your story to another person. You could do it in person and ask them to hold that story for you in memory. Or you could start emailing bits and pieces of your story. You could interview someone, say a family member, and record. You can record that conversation on your phone. The how you get started doesn't matter. What matters is that people are invited to speak their truth and someone is there to listen. So the fabulous part about this is, for the first time in human history, we have the technology now to help people from anywhere and everywhere not only record their stories, but release them to the world.
That's great. So that's awesome. So as a person going through a spiritual journey, how would I begin to document all that's happened to me? I'm not an author like you are. This isn't in my comfort zone.
Right. Okay, so you're saying something really important here, and I like that you asked this question, because I think this is where people get stuck right off the bat. Spiritual life story work really begins with pausing and reflecting on your life. And you can pick any starting point. You can go back to family history, pick a moment in childhood, a moment of joy or a period of trauma. What you want to look for over time really are patterns. So you come to recognize this incredibly rich storehouse of wisdom that's already yours. So it all starts really with noticing, just paying attention, learning the language of your inner life. And you can simply jot things down as they come to you. This is a great way to get started, like a dream or an insight, something flashes across your mind, or something synchronistic that happens. And then come back to that and revisit it when you have time to really ask yourself, wow, what happened there? What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was that all about? And don't be surprised if you find yourself, scribbling on a Tim Hortons napkin just to get things done. I have done that many a time, because once you prime the pump, the images just start to come and the words begin to flow. So while you're doing that, I would say, of course, it really helps to get perspective on what you're going through just by connecting with others. And a great way to do that is to read. And if you can, try to read widely, like just expose yourself to works from other times and places, from other cultures, especially. And don't be afraid. These are all deeply human stories. So that exploration could start with something really accessible, a work like Eat, Pray, Love, or I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, or The Nature Poetry of Mary Oliver. But really, spiritual life stories are everywhere. So I would say, if you can, start with Joy Harjo's Crazy Brave and Summer Habib's We Have Always Been Here. And, for the old folk musicians in your life, don't forget Bruce Coburn's memoir, Rumors of Glory. Just enjoy it.
Wow, those are some great books that you've given us to take a look at, and a beautiful song to take a look at. So tell me, why do you think it's important to document our experiences?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to give you three reasons. So on an individual level, anytime we reflect on our experience, we learn about ourselves at a deeper level. I mean, Socrates said, self-knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. And I can assure people, for I've seen this happen time and again, spiritual life story work really is transformative. You are using your voice. You are in control of your own story. You are making your mark. That is incredibly empowering and freeing. But on a community level, I would say if you have the courage to stand and tell your story, I can guarantee you that someone somewhere will be changed by it. They will be moved, inspired. They will realize that these stories matter. And so it seems like a very private act really does bring people together. And then I'm just going to go for broke here, Heather, and I'm going to say on a global level, spiritual life story work, whether you're braving it on your own or you're helping other people release their stories, this is really peace and justice work. You know, it is about learning to let go of fear and judgment and helping one another move towards healing and reconciliation. And I really, all these levels need to be embraced. And the reason why I say this is because, you know, people are still feeling shamed and concerned about the kinds of experiences they're having. And really, in 1901, the psychologist William James published The Varieties of Religious Experience, and the experiences he describes in that book are still talked about today as if they're out there, or they're, you know, marginal, or they're woo-woo, but they're not. You know, these are not remotely strange spiritual experiences. They're an integral, normal part of the human journey, and we need to be talking about them that way. I think now is the time to change that conversation.
Wow. I had no idea how motivational and empowering the written word of spiritual journeys could be. Well, Susan, what a genuine pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for taking the time to explain this so we can gain a better understanding.
Oh, Heather, thank you. It's a joy speaking with you.
Tell me, where can we find your book? And can I persuade you to come back and talk about it on a future podcast?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. You want to ask for Body and Soul by Susan Scott at your local library or at an independent bookstore. And of course, you can always order it from your favorite online retailer.
Well, there you go. The woman of the written word has spoken, and she is on a mission. And what words she has given us to be inspired by. Check out her book, Body and Soul, which I hope to interview her on at a later date. And be sure to visit her website. What's your website again, please?
Susan L. Scott twohornedbull.ca. Or you can simply email me at scott@tnq.ca.
Thank you, Susan, for your guidance and inspiration. Well, that's all for today's episode of Spiritual Awareness. Thanks for listening to our very first podcast, and thank you to Tina Heathers for joining us today to talk about the spiritual awareness community, along with Susan Scott for sharing her knowledge about documenting your journey. Join us again next month when we talk about circle drumming with Mary Jean Belrose, and we chat with Heather Oliver about nature walking. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Plus, stop by our website at Awakening Spirituality or our Facebook page for updates on spiritual development circles, workshops, conferences, and events. Feel free to send us a message at tina@awakeningspirituality.ca. Take care.